All right, good, good.
Hey, how we
So
doing,
wait,
buddy?
so you're not in the UK. You're in like somewhere deep in the jungle of where they have some kind of floral arrangements on that wallpaper.
Buddy, it's hot. It's 35 degrees, man. It's in the 90s here. We're just living the
35. So
palm tree life.
you did not need to tell me the 90s, as I learned for many years of being in Toronto. 30 is
No,
hot. 30 is
that
hot.
was more for the rest of the audience, but it was actually 40 in London today in the UK with no
40.
air conditioning.
So that brings up a story that I often tell. I told it here in the gym, where when Wimbledon was on, and when we went to Wimbledon with Milos a few years ago. Obviously, his biggest run was when he finished second. Which then the following year he is known as the first runner-up of the championship or something, some title. And so when you're at that level, you typically will stay right around the what's it called, all
Yeah,
whites or whatever, all
yeah.
England, whatever it's called.
In
And
Wimbledon, yeah.
so and because those, just like in golf or other individual sports, there's a crew. Like there's a lot of us that
Yeah.
these players will utilize. And the you have to rent the house for the entire tournament, not knowing how long you're actually going to play. Now, obviously, we did
Commit.
we did yeah, we did quite well. But these houses are very nice. Like, this is a very well-to-do area of London. But you stay there because if you stay elsewhere in like these super nice, maybe Americanized hotels, the traffic is so unbearable that you could never get there in time. There's
No
no air
chance.
con- there's no air conditioning in these houses. So whenever it was a couple years ago, it was one of the hottest summers ever in the
Oh,
UK. So we ordered like these industrial fans, like you would see in like a warehouse, and they make this basically this dull roar that when they work, it's like you're
like
trying to dry out like a painted a room, and you're trying to dry it out really fast.
a
And
good white noise.
yeah, I was about to say it acted as like a sleep, aid to. But that, because it's true. Like, there's no air conditioning. I don't know that people here in America know that there's no, it's not a thing there. It's not a.
Well, and the weird part is the flip side of that is everyone tells me it's so cold in Canada, but inside the
It's
houses
equal.
we have insulation and cheap heating. So I've never worn more clothing indoors in my life than living in England than I did when I was in Canada.
No,
So
so
the outside temperature and the inside temperatures always match over here.
well
There's no
oh, I
changing.
get it. Well, maybe because those houses were there first and they didn't have the same
Yeah,
infrastructure. The
pretty much.
the um, the other part of that story is like, and I'm sure this is part of the narcissism of being American. You think of New York City and London because these are two of the most important cities in the world. You think they're on the same latitude. Dude,
Yeah.
London is like Winnipeg. Like, it's so if you tell somebody from New York, oh yeah, it's like Winnipeg, they're gonna think it's cold or it's very temperate during like 2 months out of the year. It's like above Winnipeg. It's like almost Alaska. London is almost even with Alaska in terms of the latitude.
That's it, man. That's one of my favorite little trivia for the North Americans is like Toronto is the same latitude more or less as Bordeaux in the south of France, which just like blows people's minds because it's like, wait a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah.
you're not throwing wine over there.
How many years now have you been there? I remember you moved, what, 2015 or something like that?
It was 2017,
Uh-huh.
2018. Came over
Okay.
a sabbatical, help out with the family, and then
Yeah.
kid number three, and a pandemic later, we're still over here.
I think you're going to be there for a few more minutes. It
Yeah,
seems to be
yeah,
it's working out for you.
it is. Yeah,
The last time we talked too, it was nice weather here. I think I didn't have sleeves on my shirt. I went and rewatched our old stuff to see what we should talk about.
I was jealous there, man. It was I feel like it was pretty cold over here when we had that conversation.
I thought you were going to say you were jealous because I had yoked out tracks or something. What's
That's it.
what's the latest? What do so you were in Canada for the last window with basketball?
Yeah, so we're in Toronto. We had a nice little heat wave there,
Hmm.
getting the good old 2 days in, and yeah, home and away. As you know, the crazy FIBA schedule. It's fly
Yeah.
fly all the way to the islands for one game.
Yeah, yeah. Are
And
you able to? Are you still able to treat people in Canada? You're still able to maintain your whatever credentials that you have.
yeah, yeah. So it's good. So it's been able to, it's nice, always nice to get back, especially to Toronto, and catch up with people, back to the clinic, and of course with CB
Well,
and all the guys. And yeah, man, it was good. Good window, 2-0,
yeah,
halfway home.
yeah. But a lot of what you do as a clinician, though, do you need to see people in person?
Well, no, that's one of the things.
Yeah, yeah.
Before the pandemic, I was trying to move more towards remote consulting, because you can really, when you're dealing with nutrition, or even from a
Functional
health
medicine.
standpoint, nowadays you can really just, we got remote blood pressure monitors. We can do blood
Right,
tests anywhere.
right.
So that's been kind of the cool shift, really, if you will, because now more organizations, teams, companies are realizing that actually it's a little easier, right? You can get a lot of touch points with someone without them having to come into the clinic, find a parking space, do the whole rest of
Yeah.
it.
Well,
So,
and it's not necessary. Now, if somebody
and
wants
that's
it
just the thing,
and
right?
they demand, but it's not necessary. And
Yeah,
so to do to provide high levels of nutrition advice or functional medicine, et cetera. What am I missing? Um, obviously, many people in America have a. It's not that we don't have the word as an osteopath, but it's very, very different than what an osteopath in Canada or the UK or Europe, basically. An osteopath in America is closer to an allopathic physician. Like, they don't really.
yeah,
I'm sure there are osteopaths that conduct themselves, but they wouldn't make any money, like
yeah.
in the American system. Whereas I don't think I don't know. I guess maybe an Asian medicine physician would be the closest to an osteopath in the American model. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, it's
well,
interesting. Just the
or a Cairo.
osteo flip from the UK to America is almost like just the
Well,
reverse. But
a Cairo, I guess, would be very similar in terms of a traditional Cairo, I think. And now, if somebody wants to come at me, go ahead, see how that works out for you. But because a traditional chiropractor would be educated that they can solve all 10 systems of the body via the spine and via these manual techniques to the spine. An osteopath is trained traditionally that somehow moving bones, osteo can solve all 10 systems of the body.
yeah,
And quite frankly, my education into osteopathics for musculoskeletal issues makes a lot of sense. Whereas manipulating one joint to affect the whole
everything else.
body, it doesn't seem to make as much sense to me. So that being
Yeah,
said, if
probably the same
everybody,
camps there.
well, it segues into the first discussion piece is as long as we all use the same tests, like we should all
Mhm.
agree on the same tests. I personally don't care, what gets the job done, because especially if I'm not getting it done, meaning if somebody does something that I don't understand or something that doesn't fit into the rubric on how I think, it can't be bad. Because if I'm not getting it done, how dare I think somebody else can't get it done? But I do think we should use the exact same test. So if somebody thinks that cracking T10 is going to change liver enzymes, well, how about we just measure liver enzymes the same way? That doesn't seem to happen nearly as much. What I mean, because you're doing things as in functional medicine and in different countries that in America is not unheard of, but it's not simple to access those things.
Well, I mean, some of it's pretty straight. I like where you're going with the test, because even just testing, like your typical blood test that you get on a physical, like your fasting glucose, your HbA1c, your lipid panel, like these are still important tests even for athletes, just to determine health status. And sometimes, to your point, we need to be on the same page of the tests that we're running, because it's nice to take these deeper dives into all these other biomarkers that we can run. But we oftentimes we look deeper down that rabbit hole before we even have a good sense of what's in front of us. And so I think that idea of, and when you go from team to team, as you've seen, there's a big discrepancy between the tests that one team might run that they think are important compared to another team that might run, a whole different set of panels. And so I think that's where there's a nice discussion to be had on, and let's all agree on, or try to have that common language on what's important for
Yeah.
athlete
And
health, athlete performance, and then we kind of go from there.
well, obviously you, when we were all together at Canada Basketball, you would be the primary decision maker. A lot of people obviously still ask how we put it all together, and it's very, very simple. Everybody is equal. Some people are more replaceable than others, and some people just do. Everybody just does different things. So, for instance, you're determining certain markers, but then we would simply use different strategies to affect those markers. So you wouldn't have, because I would be the one typically to carry out a lot of those things
Yeah.
when you're not around. But those tests and those values were always were decided, and we all just do it because like we would always say, like, no one's in charge. The system is in charge, and then the human that has that particular expertise, that they carry the football, and
Yeah.
everybody blocks. But the system decides. So if the system values things like blood work and anything that goes into somebody's mouth, or probably not recently, but when we were budgeted heavier, we were doing bags, we were doing IVs, we were doing all these things. And that's where I started, not started because obviously, I'm very close with Sunil Jain, but to have this level of exposure to all of these things. But when you mention teams, again, whether it's teams or general population, I think when, just because a particular expertise sets a standard, that doesn't mean they're the only people that can affect that standard, right? I think that's very important.
I think that was pretty cool. I was going to say, with the setup that we had of just being able to, like, to your point, you didn't have to be able to execute from everyone else's expertise, but just being able to see the problem through their lens and understand it.
Yes.
Creates, that's the system that you sort of talk about. And then executing the actual strategy, depending on what was most impactful for the person, then it makes it more straightforward, right?
Well, I think obviously there are always checks and balances based on individual roles. And basically, I don't even need to talk so much about Canada Basketball, because even when you work individually with a person, this is the model that goes through, where we wouldn't value a measure unless it could be positively impacted in 6 ways. So let's say it's something incredibly traditional, and in an elite young basketball player, A1C is typically not is something that is going to ring a bell. But on general blood work, it would get measured. But let's just use that as an example, since you mentioned it before. A1C could absolutely be affected through medical techniques. You could take medicine, and I'm sure there's some kind of something that a highly specific medical training. It can be affected by fitness. Obviously, if somebody's A1C is elevated, we can manage it through some of these channels and how adaptation. Obviously, nutrition. Sleep, there's probably nothing that sleep can't positively or negatively impact. Psychology, again, psychology and sleep is for everybody. And then load management, which may or may not deal with fitness. So we would never choose something. So even though I would not be the primary decision maker in deciding what we care about from your expertise, because you're not around all the time, and then I would carry out the nutrition piece anyway. It's that's really how the model really can become very, very positively explosive, where everybody just does what everybody else does. It's not a hard thing.
Absolutely. I was going to dovetail off that to say, that you mentioned psychology, and I mean, you see this all the time, but when you guys be treating someone on the table, the conversations that you have with an athlete, and
absolutely.
now all of a sudden these little pieces are coming out about actually how they feel after training, or where their energy's at, or where they're struggling with cravings at 1 in the morning, eating a bag of Oreos, things that don't necessarily come out in the first glance when you're having sort of a formal visit. So I feel like that was always such a key part of the whole process, was being able to, just to sit in those rooms with you guys, and just the information that you guys would get just from putting your hands on guys. And all of a sudden, with that relationship, we're getting a little bit more information than we would in that first pass.
Everyone is a psychologist, family members, and of course, even though, I think unfortunately, and it was never the case with us, given the 2 psychologists that we have, but in other organizations, the psychologist usually thinks they're the smartest person in the room. which would not be the case in Canada basketball. But everything, so they think they're the only one that knows this stuff. But clearly, psychology can be measured physiologically. You can do it through blood work, and you can measure it through something if you believe. Like we obviously had a very strong belief for omega wave. So if you intervened with psychology, we should be able to measure it universally, and omega wave would potentially answer that. But we're not going to measure serum levels of dopamine, which isn't even possible. But you could. But a positive talk therapy can be met if you feel better. Then there's some kind of neurotrans. It's not. You can't dissociate anything from anything, and that's also why we can't blame one thing for creating a solution either. If you can't blame it for causing a problem, you can't blame it for solving a problem either. I think that was something that is very, very, very universally accepted with when we work together.
The beauty of complex problems, isn't it? There's just so many, there's so many avenues, and we know that things are impacting other things. And we were always really good with kind of keeping the main thing, and what are all these values telling us, but not getting lost in sort of. It's easy to get pulled in different directions, isn't it? With all the things we can actually, quantify and assess.
Here's the meat and potatoes. We'll see if we have enough time for all this. But based on what I suggested, like when you're not around, I wound up being the one that would execute a lot of basically the nutrition piece, and nutrition advice, and et cetera. Number two, being married to someone that champions these types of things over the last several years, it has resonated more to me. But also, when things started to make a little bit more sense to me from a nutrition or I don't know what we're going to call it, if we need to call it functional medicine or humoral and hormonal impact on the body. If I'm doing something that appears, like let's say post-surgical, where the bell is ringing the loudest in a musculoskeletal component, and let's say it's a knee surgery and the quad is mush and it's not getting to be, it's not responding at the speed. I would say only over the last couple of years, because people ask me all the time, like, hey, what are you getting into? What's your new thing? I'm like, nah, I'm just trying to put more keys on the key ring. Now the answer is very, very clear. My answer is nutrition and blood work. And I don't expect to have the expertise of you or like my buddy Andy, or et cetera, et cetera. But when I go back to that quad, I'm like, how much, do you have any idea how much you eat? Do you like how much because if that quad is going to get bigger from doing whatever tried and true techniques, if you don't eat enough food or you don't eat enough protein, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what we do in physical therapy. It doesn't matter what we do in training if you don't eat. I mean, this is simple. I used to just say this to women, like, you can't look like, a bodybuilder unless you eat and take exogenous hormones. But if we look at people that struggle putting on weight, gaining or losing weight, we look at people that struggle from a rehab standpoint, and in fact, rehab, just by having surgery, you require significantly more calories. Where nothing matters, you can't do it. Your shit won't work, and it would probably go the opposite. You could have a brilliantly dialed in, nutrition panel, and you and so whoever else says, oh man, that blood work looks nice. That's all awesome. And
Get
if
the
you
chef
train
in there.
if you train like an idiot, which we see probably more of that, it doesn't matter. Like you won't achieve. That's something that I wanted to share with you. Whereas people that are really dialed in to training and therapy, you don't have the option to dissociate from nutrition. It's not an option. I took a call recently with a gentleman who played rugby at a very, very high level. He was still claimed to be around 200 pounds, but he's not an athlete so much anymore. Very, very competent therapist. And he took a consult with me and says, look, I just got into this long distance bike riding. It's like meditation for me. I said, all right, well, that's your
Knock your socks off.
Yeah. And he said, like one day a week is like a 6-hour bike ride. I mean, fuck, I don't sleep 6 hours. And then he's like 2 other days are like 3-hour bike rides. And he goes, I'm losing muscle. Like I'm getting smaller. Mind you, this is a big rugby dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so do you, he's like, you have no pain? Like, no, I just feel like I'm getting older. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure riding a bike is not the reason you're getting older, but like where are you at with nutrition? He's like, I don't even worry about it. Like, I don't have any eyes on it. I said, okay, do you have any idea how much protein you eat? And he said 120 grams a day. I'm like, I think we have our problem here, because if you only have 120 grams, you're probably not even answering the first question, which is how much you have eat total. Where am I?
Yeah.
Am I on the right boat with all this? Like, I don't think you can dissociate. So here's you're the person that would make those decisions on what they eat, how much they eat, maybe when they eat, if it gets to a higher level. I don't care what you do in training if you don't eat.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great place to start, man. I mean, we got to just get enough bricks to rebuild the house. You know, if they're taking the bricks out faster than we're putting them back in, we're not going to recover from injury, which you mentioned before. And that's the one where when appetite goes down, it's hard because you need just as much, just as much protein to be able to recover, but you're not as hungry. And then you get the example of the cyclist, and it's that same idea. If we can hit the daily total, if we can divide it through the day, it's amazing how, not just for even muscle, but immune function, everything else that we need these building blocks for. And to go along with that, I mean, we're always talking about micronutrition. Well, the best way to increase your micronutrition is to consume sufficient protein, right? We see those rising in parallel. So that's such a nice place to start, because if you can anchor that and sort of set that with your client or athlete, it really sets the foundation, because after that, you're just leveraging energy via carbs or fats to be able to achieve, hey, maybe that guy wants to do the Tour de France where cyclists consume 18 grams of carbs per kg on an intense day. Of course, they don't weigh very much because weight to power matters. Or you can go all the way down to a low day for a Premiership football or even a rugby player would be 3 to 4 grams per kg. So there's just this huge swing for carbohydrate that does need to be a little bit planned and purposeful. Because to your point, when the athlete's injured, we want to ramp down the total energy, but we still want the protein there. Yeah. And then when they're back to return to play, then we can ramp the energy back up. But what you're alluding to previously there was that when they get injured, everything comes down: the protein, the meal frequency, the total energy. And now we're not in a good spot, and it's likely going to take longer than it should to recover.
The analogy that I have started to use for post-surgical or injured, and post-surgery makes a little bit more sense to most people. I'm like, your activity level is appears to be lower, but let's say if you have shoulder surgery, think of the car is idling at 4 RPMs. So you have to feed that, because if you want new tissue to build, it has to come from somewhere. It doesn't just,
it needs something.
You don't just, this is why, because I would say, for at least in my world, surgeries never fail. Like if you go to some slappy, in-network loser, yes, you could get a bad surgery. I'm going to say most surgeries are perfect, and there's just something that is unequal after. Your rehab is garbage. You didn't train well enough, like you don't have enough immune system function or hormonal function. But if you don't eat when you're training, I mean, while you have surgery, how do you think that the tendon builds its stuff? Like, even if you don't take a scoop of collagen, like, how do you think this happens? So it helps put people into perspective. And I don't think, again, I'm always thankful for where these exposures, because I think what happens is when somebody has a high level of expertise, they think / want that to always be how the person gets better. You get to score the touchdown every time. So give
me the ball, coach. Give me the ball.
Yeah, like if you do IVs, you're gonna think IVs solve everybody's problem, and that's ludicrous. If for me, the things that I do well, like it can't possibly be the answer for every single person. And I'm finding that if we have, because now I have a better awareness of nutrition over the last 4 to 5 years, and I have no intention to ever have the level of expertise, that, because I don't have the repetitions. It's impossible. But to think that quad after knee surgery gets gigantic without eating significant amounts of food, like how would any muscle get bigger? How does a bodybuilder get a bigger, or a cyclist, like you're saying? Like how does it?
Yeah.
You have to eat. Like those are the building blocks, I think you just said, of how this stuff works.
And I think it gets confusing for the general public or practitioners who work with the general public, because the fueling for an elite athlete is just so much higher that we often just think of like, well, that's going to cause a blood sugar issue, or, you know, that would give me pre-diabetes. So that context part for the practitioners is so key, because yeah, depending on who we're working with, if it's a football player and you're up to 7 to 9 grams per kg of carbohydrates, or just someone in the general public, you know, if they're trying to lose 30 or 40 pounds, then the total fueling is going to be lower, but we're still going to want to keep that protein up. So yeah, man, it's always interesting how context drives everything. And I love your point about, you know, always thinking that the thing that you've got to provide is the thing that we think is going to solve every problem. But
yeah, it's
sometimes
ridiculous.
it's a little part of the solution. Sometimes it's a big part of the solution, but it's a continuum, right?
Well, that's people will introduce somebody, but oh, like, what do you do? And I just look at Allie. Like, I hate talking about what I do, because I'm like, yeah, I'm a physical therapist by title, but obviously some people don't even know I'm a physical therapist. They think I'm only a strength coach or fitness guy. Opposite,
Mm-hmm.
some people have no idea that they just think I lift or something.
Yeah.
But when I look to evaluate someone, Andy Galpin actually does a pretty good job of describing what I do, because as I've helped him with some people, they're like, he expected answers the first time we ever connected. He expected answers that were very physical related. Yeah. Not even binary, but
Okay.
like if it was training and rehab, T equals R.
Yeah,
T
yeah.
equals R, it should be like T equals R equals N equals SL equals
the equation doesn't fit on the box.
Yeah, not anymore. But it started that way. But you see what I mean? Like it became like I tried to look at not the opposite of what I said, where I think most people they're binary because they want their specialty to be what solves the problem.
Yeah.
Look, that's highly altruistic. I'm doing the opposite. I want to look at somebody, if I'm in charge and I'm going to manage their process, I want to find the stuff that I don't do. If you need surgery and I tell you need surgery, there's a good chance you need surgery, because I'm giving away money and I'm giving away the glory and the power of being the one that helped you solve your problem. Because if I can, and again, this is how we would look at things, you know, up until last year in Canada basketball. It doesn't matter who does it. That's the thing. Like, if someone else can carry it out and on my recommendation, it has to be right. Meaning it's noble. Meaning, and that's where, you know, in previous years, you know, Jay Triano would say, like, look, you know, I don't think you're telling me this stuff because you want us to lose. You're giving me these recommendations on training load and physiology because you're smarter than me, and that's why I'm going to listen to you. Obviously, that sentiment is not shared by other people. But because they want to do it, they just want to do it their way. But at least from a performance standpoint, I have found that if the recommendation is away from what you do well, it's like noble. Like, it has to be right. Yeah, especially in a private sector where you're giving away money.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's all about solving the person's problem, the athlete's problem. Like, how do we get to the finish line? How do we win the game? How do we get? And so, yeah, if you're a small part of that, a medium part of that, a big part of that, I think that was part of our success in Canada basketball, was that everyone was able to speak the similar language and wear different hats, which, you know, 8-9 years ago was kind of a new thing. Nowadays, much more common, which is cool. But and then just getting the clients and athletes to, you know, over the finish line was enough glory,
I just found if I had a young lady that had I think she had something like a pathological fracture, meaning it just for no reason, at least that she knew, and she got referred to me, and I'm like, I could train you, but that's not what you're here for. Like, that's not, like, you're fine. Like, you have a good foundation. I think you're better off, you know, if you have resources, you should go to see this person, or this person to help maybe understand how this femur broke for no reason whatsoever. Because I don't think there was no reason.
Exactly.
Like, well,
there's a reason.
my doctor said that you should help. I said, you squat well, like you're not weak, like you're, again, I can help you get better, but I don't know if that's, and she was like floored, because I was basically sending her away. I said, no, I'm not sending you away. Like, you seem like a nice person. I could train you and swipe your credit card.
Yeah.
And that was probably more in the functional medicine space, not necessarily nutrition.
Yeah.
I know. So, but let's get into the what was it? Maybe a year, 2 years? No, it was during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You and a few other folks started to put together something related to getting this nutrition information in the hands of more people, and maybe try and demonstrate not just do this, do this, do this. In this world, and you picked American football, but it could be any world, that, okay, you're going to do this, this, and this, but the reason we're doing this, this, and this is to support the training piece. It's not just to lose weight or get diesel. It's so that you can maintain the unique demands of this particular activity, which is really what we've been talking about.
100%. I mean, nutrition has its roots in sort of bodybuilding and whatnot. And so still a lot of the language and things that we use comes from that, which, does serve a purpose. But when we talk about athletes, as I mean, football players have specific needs. So we have, we developed a football performance nutrition course. We've got, 10 different lectures there, working in pro football, working in NCAA. And it goes from everything from just understanding the demands, what are the demands of the sport? How much energy do we really know football players are taking in? And from there, just like at Canada basketball, we try to run the breadth of not just the recovery, nutrition, and everything else, but as we get into supporting the brain, concussion recovery, the mindset piece. Excuse me. So it's been fun. We just had a summit with a bunch of speakers on. And so people want to jump on. We're running the course this summer. We've got I think we had over almost a dozen NFL teams on the summit. Again, we got performance nutritionists and sports scientists contributing. So it's been fun to be able to see, as I'm joking here, to see the buy-in.
You should get some nutrition advice as to why you're getting so parched.
Seriously.
But yeah, a couple years ago, I think it was just 3 presenters, and then more recently, you drink your water. I'll do the talking. What else is new? And then you had a couple days of different speakers, and I think that was trying to segue into a pretty grand event that you want to put together later this summer. Is that right?
Yes, we just had the first football performance nutrition summit. So we had 10 speakers. Yeah. Again, NFL, Bills, Dolphins, NCAA. And we're going to be building on that every year. So people can check that out. They can also jump in, this summer cohort of the football performance nutrition. We'll have, again, speakers on. When does that start?
Yeah, when does that start?
So it's been rolling now. So you can check that out if you go to performancenutritionpodcast.com or drbubbs.com/athletes. You can get all that info. Again, got 10 modules, over 12 hours of content. And then, we're going to be twisting your arm to come on and provide some insights as well as we go through the fall. But yeah, it's been a great time to be able to connect all these different, practitioners. And again, try to really expand the breadth. We talk a lot about athlete health, the brain, mindset pieces, because as you know, that's a pretty big part of this whole story of just how the athlete feels plays a big role in everything, right? So
no question. And it answers the people that ask me, like, hey, what are you trying to get into? What are you learning more about? This is the answer, basically, is hands down. But just like with anything, I don't care if the speakers share this global view, because I don't think it's a knock on them. Because you're saying if they work in the NFL, they basically don't. There's no team that puts this all together. That would be completely 100% false. Doesn't mean they're not good nutritionists. It doesn't mean they're not good people. But there's 0 teams that actually puts together medical, fitness, nutrition, load management. Zero. So that doesn't mean the information that they have can't be put into that model. And it all starts with quality information. So if you're a therapist, if you're a coach, this is a really good place to start to understand what people that are better at than you, like they're better at it than me. So I'm just going to follow what they say. They've done more repetitions, and then I'll try and take it and shape it into the context of what other people do, because, you know, there's no way, like, so if I'm really good at whatever, well, if I do what you do first, maybe it makes what I do better. And then I do what somebody else does after. We now have this superhero version, which is where you know, that's the value here. Like, you know, because look, I've been, as you well know, part of having me, you know, involved a little bit. I deal with a lot of NFL players, and they don't do what the nutrition person says, because they don't have to, and it doesn't mean that the information isn't good. And if you can take the information and plug it into other places, so is it the same 10 speakers? Is that what it's going to be coming up?
So with the summit's already gone. If you want access, people can gain access. We had again the 9 speakers there, which was great. And it really is what we talked about before, of now more practitioners being able to see problems through different lenses. So S&C coaches on there being able to then see what the nutritionist is sort of seeing. But to your point, not necessarily trying to be to that level, but even upskilling to a certain level still solves a lot of the issues that someone's going to see, as you know, right? Like knowing a little bit pretty much gets you 80% of the way home. And so it's been great to see more people, you know, wanting to understand things from all those different points of view. And, you know, we have a module all about, you know, mindset, building relationships, that whole piece of, because just as you alluded to, the athlete that you always want to impact the most sometimes is the most talented one who doesn't think about it at all. They don't think maybe nutrition or whatever it is that important. But as the staff, you think, geez, this is actually the missing piece for this individual. So now the problem becomes the psychology, mindset, you know, relationship side. How do we connect enough to be able to influence this individual or that individual's team to be able to let them know that, hey, this thing's actually quite important. So, you know, all those soft skills that, you know, you really only get through reps, just as you mentioned, right? I mean, some of these soft skills are not things you're going to learn in a textbook. And so while we got all the evidence-based info on fueling for American football, we're trying to level up some of those soft skills that a practitioner can, you know, in your domain could do, or a performance psychologist could do, with just how we can communicate with someone to just start to move the needle a little bit more. Because, you know, as you know, it's busy, it's fast, it all comes pretty quick, and people working on the ground, there's only so much bandwidth. So you're really just trying to make as big an impact as you can. No,
I think if we were to round it all off, if something is not working, like, have you put any eyes on nutrition and sleep? Because and they might even be more important, because you can't put something in somebody's mouth and you can't make them go to sleep. Like and those two are usually the buckets that get a lot of run, because you can't nearly control. If someone's on my table, I can do whatever and they're going to acquiesce. Put your arms up and you put the catapult on them, they'll probably acquiesce, unless it's in the NBA. You know, it's but that's where you start with some of the basic information, and then you start to just be like, even if you don't execute it, you can advocate for the person. And that's really where I think I'm at, where you have to be able to tell people, listen, you know, you need to get into this. I know you're committed to physical therapy to get your knee better, but it's not, you're going to think I suck if you continue to think it's cool to eat 1,300 calories. I mean, that's just how that's the global easy message, I think.
Yeah, it's like the classic, I guess, I mean, Paulo might have said it before, but there was a cooking show on here where, you know, you get the chicken wing from the fast food place and you snap it in half and it breaks pretty easy, right? Versus the one that was running around and outside and eating proper food. So that, you know, we're no different, right? We need to fuel a certain way to be able to be strong and resilient. So, yeah, man. Yeah.
So, Performance Nutrition Podcast, you can go back and see everything. And this was something I don't remember if I viewed every single one, but I think I saw a good, at least the 60-70% of them. And I'm just listening, you know, I'm just, you know, it's because I couldn't care less who they do it with, or because most of the time it's exaggeration, but the information is what's the crucial piece. So I hope, I'd like to see people give that a go. And does this one have an exam? The first one had an exam.
We got exams on there.
All right, good.
We got the videos. We got discount too for people if they want to jump in. So there you go, man.
So
But yeah,
so
I
hey,
know
when we
there's a
post
lot of
this,
quizzes now.
when we post this, you'll chime in with whatever the discount is, or if you want me to email it to everybody, if it's something for people that are in the list, then I would be very happy to promote it, because it's the right thing for people to start to get into.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate
All
it,
right,
man.
man.
And again,
Go
keep
find
staying warm over there. I'm gonna do the same over here,
yeah,
and
go find
I'll
some air
twist your arm
go
this
find
fall to
some air
get you to contribute.
conditioning. Go find some air conditioning in the mall.
I just built an office in my backyard. All my kids are in there playing. I'm like, what's going on here?
All right,
I'm
man. Well,
upstairs. So
cool.
this is my life.
All right. Well, keep at it, man. We'll talk soon.
Take care, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.